What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we have made it to Week 14, Rivalry Week. But before we get to Rivalry Week, it was a pretty crazy Week 13, and you see the top story here. LSU was upset by UAB. LSU lost at home to UAB. This is an LSU team that seemed to possibly be on track to make a run at the college football playoff. They lost to UAB. Clemson, they were shocked by Miami. So a couple of huge upsets in Week 13. You see Pittsburgh getting a big win over Duke. Iowa loses to Minnesota. Iowa was a team that was number one in the country earlier, just about halfway through the season. They have kind of come apart a little bit. North Carolina continues to win. North Carolina, every time you think, oh, this could be a trap game, an upset alert type game, they just win. They just keep on winning. Illinois takes out Michigan in overtime. So we saw upsets all over the place. And then, of course, the big one, LSU, Texas A&M, which isn't as big after that upset. And also, of course, Michigan, Ohio State. Let's go to the scores from last week, and we'll look at the updated top 25 and all of that as we go through these scores. And I'm not going to, of course, read them all off, but I will scroll through them and see what we can find that is interesting. We got only 3 games coming up this week, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. A lot of close games, that's for sure. A lot of close games. Again, there's Notre Dame taking care of business against Boston College. Texas A&M still in the playoff race. Florida State wins big. They're ranked at number 10. Oh my, Vanderbilt beats Florida. How about that? Vandy's going to a bowl game with that win. 6-5 for the Commodores. There's that Iowa loss to Minnesota. Bedlam, Oklahoma takes that. And so you wonder who is still alive in this playoff race. We'll take a look at that in just a little bit. LSU now out of it after this loss to UAB. If they would have won the SEC with 2 losses, they could have possibly gotten in. Georgia beats Kentucky in a close game. Tennessee over South Carolina. We showed you that game. UCF, big win. There's that Illinois win over Michigan in overtime. As we go through, USC beating UCLA. USC's number 8, and they only have 1 loss. USC is a team that could possibly make the playoff. Oregon only has 1 loss. They could possibly get in still. We got a lot of teams that are still in this race. This Week 14 and the conference championship games are going to be huge. There's Kansas beating Texas. They seem to just have Texas' number. Ohio State rolled over Maryland. Buckeyes look like one of the top teams in the country. Arkansas is in the top 10. Look at that, 10-7. Nebraska over Wisconsin. There's that upset. Miami over Clemson, which might open the door for Florida State. No, I don't think it would because of the head-to-head. Let's see, what else we got here? TCU over Baylor. It's going to be very interesting looking at these conference races, which we'll take a look at those in just a second. West Virginia upsets Kansas State, so that makes the Big 12 really interesting. And again, there's North Carolina. They survive against Georgia Tech. They just keep on winning. So let's go to, first we'll look at the top 25, look at the playoff picture, then we'll look at the conference standings. Before that, we'll look at the Heisman. Always curious to see. Drake May now up to number 1. Hendon Hooker dropped a spot. You got Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Bryce Young, all quarterbacks in the top 5. Okay, now let's go to the playoff rankings. And there is North Carolina at number 1, then Notre Dame, then Ohio State, then Texas A&M. Those teams are in control of their destiny. If they win out, they will be in. Tennessee is in control because if they beat Texas A&M in the SEC championship, they will be in. So the top 5 teams are in control. Oregon is going to need some help. They need someone up there to lose. Oklahoma probably not going to get in. USC is in the same boat as Oregon. They just need one of those teams to lose. One of those top 3 teams to lose. And then you got some 2-loss teams that don't really have a chance. There's Alabama with 4 losses, ranked number 12. Again, it just makes no sense. You got Kansas State with 2 losses all the way down at 16. UCF looking good for that potential group of 5 spot in the New Year's Six. I think they might be the only. Well, UAB is also ranked, so we'll see how that shakes out. Fresno State also in the conversation, so that'll be an interesting race there, seeing which team is ranked highest in the group of 5. Let's go to the conference standings, and we will go through each conference, starting with the ACC. So Clemson is there. Clemson has clinched this division because of the head-to-head over Florida State. So even with the loss to Miami, Clemson's still going to be in, and they're going to play North Carolina in the ACC championship, despite what happens in the final weekend here. Even if North Carolina loses, they will still be in there. So we're going to see Clemson versus North Carolina, just like real life. We're going to see UCF more than likely here out of the American. Tulane and Cincinnati, that'll be a big game. Houston, you got a 3-way tie there for second place. We'll see what comes out of that conference. The Big 12, Oklahoma now, they're in the driver's seat with just 1 loss. You got Kansas State and TCU battling for number 2. And I guess Kansas State has the head-to-head because they have them ahead here in the rankings. I don't remember who won that game. Which means if Kansas State wins on this final weekend, it'll be Oklahoma versus Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. If they lose and TCU wins, then TCU will be in there. Ohio State has clinched the Big 10 East regardless of what happens against Michigan. In the West, Illinois maybe has clinched. I don't know if they have the head-to-heads over Minnesota and Iowa. I can't remember all these scores. But it looks like it's probably going to be Illinois and Ohio State in the Big 10 championship. Conference USA, UTSA continues to take care of business there. In the MAC, there's Ohio still at the top. And then Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan tied in the West. In the Mountain Division, New Mexico still at the top. That division's awful. And it looks like Fresno State will be the team that they'll play in the Pac-12, in the Mountain West Championship. Pac-12 championship game will be Oregon versus USC. This is already decided. If USC loses, it'll be a non-conference game, so it doesn't really matter. Oregon would only have 1 loss. So we'll see Oregon versus USC in the Pac-12 championship game. That'll be a good one. We're going to see Tennessee in the SEC East. They have clinched because I can't remember now who they even lost to. But I know that they beat Georgia. And I know they beat Missouri. So they're in. Again, I can't remember. Maybe they lost to LSU or... I just don't remember. There's so many games here. SEC West, it's going to be LSU or Texas A&M. They will play. So a play-in game there. That is going to be a big one. We will, of course, show you that game. And then also in the Sun Belt, it's James Madison on top. And Texas State, Troy tied in the West. So let's get to the games. Again, I'm only going to show you 3 games this week. There's just, once you get to this point, so many games mean so little. And that's why a 12-team playoff, I think, is going to be beneficial. Because all these games that don't really matter, they're going to matter. If you see a number 9 team versus a number 15 team, that's going to be a huge game when you have a 12-team playoff. So let's go through the games here. The game, we got the Egg Bowl, of course, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. We're actually going to show you Arkansas, Missouri. Not a huge game in terms of conference championship or anything like that, but both teams are ranked, so I felt like this was a game worthy of showing. Arkansas trying to get into a New Year's Six bowl, so that's a pretty big game. We also have NC State, North Carolina. Could North Carolina possibly be upset in this game? It'll be this game, and then all they'll have left is Clemson, so we'll see. Can anyone take down the Tar Heels? And then really just nothing else big on the Friday games. As you go through the rest of these games, again, most of them, there's really no ranked matchups or anything like that. So we get into the Saturday games, and you look at the noon window, and it's kind of the same story, just not any big games. That's a pretty big game in the American, but neither team's even ranked, so I'm not going to show that game. I'm actually going to have some pretty big changes coming to this channel very soon. I'll be talking about that later. We'll go through the rest. So we are going to show a 3:30 game, and that game will be LSU Texas A&M. This would have been even bigger if LSU had not been upset by UAB, but this is for the SEC West. So not only that, to see who goes to the SEC championship, but also Texas A&M. If they win this game and Tennessee takes care of business against Vanderbilt, It's going to be Texas A&M versus Tennessee with a spot in the college football playoff on the line in the SEC championship. So this is a huge game here. Michigan, Ohio State, I know that is a bigger rivalry and everything, but the fact that Ohio State's already wrapped up the division, that's why I picked Texas A&M LSU over this game. I wish this game was at noon, then we would show you that one first, but it just is what it is. It's how the schedule came out on the game. And then we go through the rest of the games. As you can see, just not a lot of big games. We have one more though that is going to be big, playoff implications, and that's going to be this game. Game day's going there. Notre Dame, USC, top 10 matchup, college football playoff eliminator game. Loser of this game going to be out of it. So this is a huge game here. Notre Dame, USC. And that'll be the other game that we show you. So we'll show you Arkansas, Missouri, and then LSU, Texas A&M, and then Notre Dame, USC. That'll be the lineup. 3 games coming up as we approach conference championship Saturday. And really quickly, I had a couple of Notre Dame fans were commenting on the quarterback situation for Notre Dame and why Tyler Buchner was starting. So I was just going to show you the ratings here. The game, so I went with my final ratings at the end of the season based off of performance, based off of recruiting rankings, all of that, the formula that I always use. And if you look at the stats between the two quarterbacks, Drew Pine just had a better completion percentage. His QB rating was much higher. I mean, he was just a lot better than Buchner in the stats. And you see, he's an 86 overall. He was an 85 before. I don't know if maybe his rating went up a point because he's doing well in the season. I thought he was 85. Anyways, Tyler Buchner's only an 80. So that's why Drew Pine is the starting quarterback for Notre Dame. And that's who you'll see out there versus USC. So just wanted to show you that real quickly. But here we go. Rivalry weekend. 3 huge games. 2 really big games. And then Arkansas, Missouri, a top 25 matchup that should be a good one. But playoff implications, conference championship races, it's all going to go down here in rivalry weekend. Watch the games tomorrow, and then we will have our conference championship games coming up after that, and then the college football playoff. Probably show you maybe some of the New Year's Six bowls. We'll see what they look like once all of this is said and done. So who do you think is going to win the big games? LSU, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, USC? Give me your predictions down in the comments below.